Now, here's the really interesting part, everybody. It looks like the Lancasters are done. And it looks like this time really, absolutely, truly, that the War of the Roses should be over. The first line of John of Gaunt and the House of Lancaster is gone. It's right here. As you can see, we've seen this family tree before. The start of the House of Lancaster is this guy, John of Gaunt. Remember him? The third son of Edward III. And now with the end of the Battle of Tewkesbury, remember, John of Gaunt got married 3 times. His first wife was to Blanche of Lancaster, right here. And now this line is done. Henry VI, dead. And Henry VI's son was also killed at Tewkesbury, if you don't remember. The second line of John of Gaunt, this woman, Constance of Castile, if you remember, Constance of Castile and John of Gaunt had 1 daughter, but she went down and married into the Portuguese and Spanish royal families. So this whole line we don't need to think about because the English are not going to get rid of their current king and put a Portuguese or Spanish man on their throne, right? Which means we need to look at that third line of Catherine Swynford. And why is this line of Catherine Swynford so interesting? What are the rules about this line, Judy?
They can never be king.
They can never be king. What is the last name, the family name given to this line that comes from John of Gaunt and Catherine Swynford?
Beaufort?
The Beaufort line, correct. And you will see that this entire line looks to be gone. During the Wars of the Roses, Edmund Beaufort, gone. John Beaufort, gone. Henry Beaufort, gone. Edmund Beaufort, gone at Tewkesbury. Even the husband of Margaret Beaufort, the daughter, he was injured at the Battle of St. Albans and he died as well. All of these guys are dead. There are no more Beauforts. Kind of. Right here, you can see that Edmund and Henry had a sister, and her name was Margaret Beaufort. We're going to talk about her a lot later, as she is one of the most interesting people in this entire story. Margaret Beaufort, when she's a girl, 12, 13 years old, is going to have a son, and his name's going to be Henry. His last name's going to be Tudor, because her husband's name was Edmund Tudor. We have really the last remaining Beaufort, a woman named Margaret Beaufort, who gave birth to a son named Henry Tudor. Now, at the Battle of Tewkesbury, Henry wasn't there. Henry was only 14 years old, which of course saved his life, but only shortly, because what do you think Edward's going to do to Henry if Henry stays in the country, even though he's only 14? Henry's a risk. He's still part of the Lancaster line. What do you think they're going to do to him, Dengmo?
Try to kill him?
Right. He's still a risk. He does have Lancaster blood in him, even though his last name's Tudor through his father. And so his mother, Margaret Beaufort, makes a big decision. Margaret Beaufort's husband, Edmund Tudor, had actually died even before Henry was born. But he had a brother named Jasper. So Jasper, Henry's uncle, goes with Henry to France to hide and be safe until the day that it comes for him to return to England, if that day ever comes. And so this young boy, Henry Tudor, is actually the last bit of the Lancaster family at this point. There's some other ones with certain blood by marrying into the family, but Henry Tudor is the main one, but he's only a teenager. So everything, once again, should be over. This is the last claimant to the Lancaster line. And as you can see, in the future, Henry Tudor is going to be King Henry VII of England. So you know something's going to happen later on to make him king. And if you look at his line, you can see he doesn't follow any of the rules. His mother is a Beaufort. He can't claim the throne through the Beaufort line because the Beauforts can't be king. Look at his father. His father's a man named Edmund Tudor, a minor knight, an earl, medium knight. Edmund Tudor is a noble, but his claim doesn't really make it so Henry can ever be king. This is a weird one. Look at Edmund Tudor's father. Edmund Tudor was a man named Owen Tudor, who we talked about earlier. Owen Tudor had supposedly secretly married Catherine of Valois, Catherine of France, Henry V's wife, after she died. But that doesn't mean anything. Sorry, marrying the widow of the former king doesn't actually give Henry VII any claim to the throne. So once again, as you guys pointed out earlier, it's setting the example that if there's a king that people don't like, then if another king has a strong enough army, they can take the throne, and the rules don't matter. You know Henry VII is going to be king. Sorry, you know Henry the Tudor is going to be king because it says Henry VII here. But you also know by looking at this family tree for Lancaster, he is definitely not in line because there's no possible way through his mother and father that he can legitimately claim the throne. So this is taking another step. Before, both Edward IV and Henry VI could legitimately claim the throne. It just depended on whose version of the family tree you looked at. By Henry VII later on claiming the throne, we're crossing another line because Henry VII doesn't really have any good claim. And here, my friends, you can see the poor Beaufort family and what the Wars of the Roses have done to them. Every single major male Beaufort has been killed during or before the Wars of the Roses, and the only person we really have left is this man, Henry Tudor. Woo! And once again, if only Edward IV can just be a good king and stay alive long enough for his son, he's got two sons, Edward and Richard, as long as he can live long enough for his sons to grow up, the Wars of the Roses once again should be over. But as you guys know, it's never that easy, and it's not over yet. The biggest problem is going to come in 1483, when Edward is suddenly going to die at the young age of 40, and his sons are still only 12 and 9 years old. And this is going to start another portion of the War of the Roses, as all of a sudden, with Edward gone, we've got two sides fighting for power. Who do you guys think the two sides are going to be that are going to be fighting for power next week when we meet with Edward dead?
Woodville?
The Woodville family, of course. It's the Woodvilles fighting against the real family of Edward IV. So with Edward IV dead and George dead, it's going to go down to the next and only remaining brother of Edward IV. Anyone remember the last brother of Edward IV? The last brother of Edward IV is, here's Edward IV. Here's his wife, Elizabeth Woodville. As you remember, Edward IV's second oldest brother was killed all the way back in 1460 at the same battle that his father was killed at the Battle of Wakefield. His brother George keeps rebelling against him and gets himself executed. So the only remaining brother that Edward has is his baby youngest brother named Richard, who had been his faithful supporter and who Edward, in his will, leaves in charge of the country until his oldest son, also Edward, can be crowned Edward V. Next class, we're going to see how this happens as Richard, Edward's youngest brother, goes up against the Woodville family, and we go to the most exciting mystery of the Wars of the Roses, the disappearance of Edward's two sons, who will become known as the Princes in the Tower.